The authority principle is a tendency of people to comply with authority figures as specified through titles, degrees, uniforms, etc. Clearly, this is a useful principle in human psychology. We are all thankful that people tend to follow authorities by only turning onto on-ramps and off from off-ramps. But the harm comes when the authority principle is followed mindlessly. Milgram's famous obedience study showed how far people will go when following the orders from authority. Participants were told it was a study of the effects of punishment on learning. In each session, a participant playing the role of teacher read questions to another alleged participant who played the role of the learner. The teacher had to inflict a series of electrical shocks on the learner, increasing the intensity of the shocks with each incorrect response. An impressive array of shock switches were clearly labeled with voltage and text. So, for instance, slight shock, strong shock, intense shock, to the highest labeled danger, severe shock, 450 volts. As the shock intensity increased, the learner screamed louder and louder, begging the teacher to stop. However, anytime the teacher hesitated, the researcher, dressed in a white lab coat, told the teacher the study must continue. Do you think anyone went all the way to the 450 voltage danger switch? A group of 39 professional psychologists predicted that 1 in 1,000 would. The results were truly shocking. In fact, 65% of the participants complied to that extreme. Fortunately, the learner was just an actor working for the experimenter, and no real shocks were administered. Marketers are using the authority technique when they use a doctor as a spokesperson recommending a medication in their ad, a car mechanic recommending a brand of car battery, a pilot commending the safety procedures of an airline, for example. And the authority technique is not only displayed in ads. We run into this often in our lives. A physician prescribes a series of medical tests for you. A tech advises you to purchase new software. An auto mechanic claims you need new brakes. Credit card companies change their terms. A flight attendant asks you to switch seats with someone else, and so on. Usually, we comply. Clearly, complying is often functional. Your doctor generally does know what tests you need best. And my mechanic surely understands the workings of my car better than I. And in some situations, the cost of not complying are greater than the cost of doing so. If you forego the medical tests, you could die. If you disobey the flight attendant, you could end up in Guantanamo. Nevertheless, consumers should avoid mindless compliance. The strategy behind the confusion principle is to gently confuse the consumer by inserting a small, odd element into the sales script, then following that with a reframe, a persuasive phrase. The disruption appears to have a distracting and confusing effect, which prevents the consumer from critically evaluating the relatively simple reframe that follows. So in one study, consumers in the disrupt then reframe condition heard this: "These Christmas cards are 200 pennies. That's $2, guys, a really good deal." Those in the control condition heard this: "These Christmas cards are $2. That, guys, is a really good deal." Consumers in the disrupt and reframe condition bought over 50% more cards than in the control condition. The trick here is that it must be a gentle confusion, a small oddity. A more brutal confusion would brutally awaken the consumer into a state of careful scrutiny of the sales script. Infomercials and shopping networks are notorious for bombarding drowsy viewers with the "that's not all" technique at 3 in the morning. It works in the opposite way than does the lowball technique. Remember that one? Instead of decreasing high initial expectations, consumers are offered a seemingly too good to be true deal, then a better and better deal before they even have a chance to carefully evaluate the initial deal. Long before the consumer can generate counterarguments, free gifts, more discounts, etc. are added one after another. Today is a special promotion. The Jingsu stainless steel block knife set has been reduced in price from $299 to $89.95. You heard me right. That is a fourth of the original price. And I'm even going to throw in free shipping. And order right now and we'll throw in a free pair of kitchen shears. And wait, it gets even better. If you order with a credit card, we'll make the first payment for you. Social psychologist Dan Gilbert has shown in his two-step study that unlike belief, disbelief requires 2 steps of information processing. First, when we are told something like, "this is a deal of a lifetime," we believe it. It takes an additional step to evaluate and disbelieve a false claim. Gilbert showed that distraction, in particular consistently bombarding people with more interesting information, can prevent them from getting to the second step. There are 2 criteria, though, in order for the "that's not all" technique to work in marketing. The first is to make the initial offer sound really great. Do you really think the knives ever sold at $299? Remember, the law only requires that they listed at that price at some point in the past, not that they actually sold any at that price. So trick number 1 is to make the deal sound so awesome that clients are already seriously thinking about grabbing it. The second trick is to throw in the voluminous add-ins very quickly, too quickly for the initial deal to be carefully evaluated. In other words, too quickly for consumers to identify the original deal as too good to be true and disbelieve the claim. In this case, the deal is perceived as too good to miss and then just gets better and better.